My 6-year-old grandchild trembled with a cord tied around their neck. "Grandma, help! My parents dumped me! Grandma, help me!" I was stunned to see my 6-year-old granddaughter Lauren asking for help. To my surprise, she was chained indoors. I hugged my granddaughter tightly, noticing how thin she had become. "Where's your mom and dad?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear. "They locked me up and went on a trip," she whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. "They haven't given me anything to eat or drink for 3 days." My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My son and his wife had done this to their daughter. I quickly pulled out a bottle of tea from my bag and gave it to Lauren, along with a piece of caramel. Then I frantically called an ambulance. Lauren, exhausted and scared, closed her eyes in my arms. I couldn't forgive them for what they had done. I vowed to make them pay for their cruelty. I'm Hannah, 65 years old. I work part-time at a 24-hour supermarket about 4 days a week. My husband passed away 5 years ago, leaving me alone. He left me with enough assets to live comfortably, but I decided to keep working while I was still healthy. My eldest son, Bradley, got married 8 years ago and lives in a house about 30 minutes away. My eldest daughter, Lily, also got married 6 years ago in a neighboring state. I felt reassured knowing that I could visit her whenever I wanted. Some people say that living alone is lonely, but I find it freeing and carefree. However, there was one thing that worried me: my eldest son and his wife. Evelyn, my son's wife, was 10 years younger than him. She was only 18 when they married, which I found to be too young. I was apprehensive from the start. The first time I met Evelyn, she was working part-time at the convenience store where Bradley was the manager. You're Bradley's mom? You're so young," she said with a surprised look. "Evelyn regards," I replied politely. "Nice to meet you. I'm Hannah. I'm glad you seem like a kind person." "Hey, can you give me money, Bradley?" she asked, looking at my son. "Please ask her for some too." Her flashy makeup and spoiled behavior made me feel uneasy. She didn't use honorifics and was already asking for money. Bradley, blinded by his young girlfriend, simply chuckled. "See, Mother, Evelyn is cute, isn't she? Think of her as a real daughter and give her some pocket money." I wanted to slap my son's head at his oblivious remark, but I held back because Evelyn was standing there. "I'm sorry, I don't have any money right now," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "Damn it," Evelyn muttered, her pointed mouth set in a pout. To be honest, I wanted to oppose their marriage from the beginning, but I had no choice but to approve it because Evelyn was already pregnant with Bradley's child. Even though Evelyn was young, I thought that motherhood might calm her down a bit. But my hopes faded away after they got married. She started asking me to run errands for her, citing reasons like severe morning sickness and a heavy body. "Mother-in-law, I'm so upset and uncomfortable," she complained. "Shop and make dinner. I like steak." "What do you eat meat when you feel nauseous?" "Well, it's for Bradley," she explained. "I only eat a little." "Oh, I got it," I said, trying to be patient. "I can eat ice cream. Buy some too." I wanted to complain about her lack of consideration, but I couldn't find the words to respond to her thinly veiled demands. On top of everything else, Evelyn started asking me for money because she said Bradley's income was too low and they couldn't live comfortably, so I gave her about $5,000 a month. "That's right, the store has been in a bad state lately and my salary has been reduced," Bradley explained when I questioned him. "Monthly help helps. Thank you, Mother. We'll take care of you when you get old." Aside from the story of old age, I thought to myself, the fact that his son and his wife were struggling financially was exactly what Evelyn said. Because she is pregnant, it must be difficult for Evelyn to work. $5,000 was my part-time fee, but I had no choice. We're a family, so we have to help each other when things are hard. Evelyn's family is far away and she's still young. With that in mind, I gave in to her request. However, they didn't understand my feelings at the time. I had no way of knowing that my son and his wife would cause such an incident. My interactions with my selfish daughter-in-law made me feel uncomfortable, but Evelyn's pregnancy went smoothly and she gave birth to a cute little girl. They named her Lauren. "Evelyn, you did a great job," I said, reaching out to her after she gave birth. "She's such a pretty girl." But her response surprised me. "Huh, she's not cute at all," she said, her voice sharp. "She doesn't look like me. Her eyes are narrow and ugly, just like yours." I couldn't believe my ears. "She has just given birth and the baby's face is a little swollen," I said gently. "But eventually the swelling will go down. She has beautiful eyes and a beautiful nose, and she looks like you, Evelyn." "Hey, how do you think such an ugly baby looks like me?" Evelyn asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Suddenly I felt a chill run down my spine. My daughter-in-law was sharp and she wasn't backing down. Even Bradley, standing next to her, began to agree with his wife. "You may be right," he said, his voice lacking conviction. "I wish she looked like Evelyn." I was stunned by their remarks, but I could only hope that my daughter-in-law was emotionally unstable just after giving birth, and that she would eventually understand how cute the baby was. However, even after that, perhaps because of Lauren's features, Evelyn kept asking me to run errands as she had before she got pregnant. My granddaughter, on the other hand, grew up to be a sweet and playful child. She started speaking early at the age of 2. "Grandma, I love it," she would say, her voice filled with joy. I remember being so happy that I cried. "Grandma loves Lauren too," I would tell her. "She's a cute treasure." Lauren was so pure and obedient that she seemed like an easy child to raise. However, Evelyn was always scolding her young daughter. "Oh, noisy! I can't hear the TV," Evelyn complained one day. "Isn't Lauren crying because she wants to spoil her mommy?" It's my child, so don't give me extra instructions," Evelyn said, her voice rising as she scattered the things on the coffee table and turned up the volume of the TV. I was worried about her not raising her child properly, so I took care of my granddaughter at my son's house whenever I could, during my part-time work and on holidays. Eventually, however, Evelyn's behavior began to disgust me. By the time Lauren was over 4 years old, Evelyn had become increasingly inconsiderate and careless. One day I bought a delicious snack as a souvenir for Lauren, so I visited my son's house. I pressed the intercom button, but no one came out. I pressed it several times, and finally the door opened. Evelyn, with a bright red face, stormed out. "It's been noisy a lot," she said angrily. "Don't you see that you're being shunned? What, you don't want me to come? It's because of you that Lauren will miss her grandmother more than her mother." To my surprise, Bradley was standing behind Evelyn. "Mother, stop bothering your daughter-in-law," he said. "Please don't come to my house anymore. But Lauren, she's our daughter, so it's none of your business." I couldn't help but worry about my granddaughter, but I couldn't match her parents. I had no choice but to give up going to my son's house. Bradley, despite his refusal to let me visit, made a generous request. "Well, I don't have enough money to live on, so please keep sending me money every month," he said. He claimed that he wanted to use the money to feed Lauren delicious food and dress her beautifully. I couldn't be around my granddaughter, but I kept sending money because I thought it would be used for her. However, in hindsight, no matter how much he hated me, I should have continued to show up at my son's house. If I had, maybe this terrible incident wouldn't have happened. When Lauren turned 6 years old, a terrible incident occurred. I sometimes go to work before 5 o'clock in the early morning. One day, when I passed by my son and his wife's house, the lights were on for 3 days in a row, even though they were usually not on. I became suspicious. The next day, I visited their house. The front door was open, and as I entered, I was met with an unusual scene. "Grandma, help me!" Lauren cried out, her voice trembling. She was chained to a pillar in the living room. There was no heat in the room, and she was shivering from the cold. I rushed to hug my granddaughter, feeling her thin frame. I hadn't seen her for a while, and she had lost so much weight. Her face was pale and bloodless. "Where's your mom and dad?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. "They locked me up and went on a trip," she whispered. "They haven't given me anything to eat or drink for 3 days." I quickly searched my bag, gave her the bottle of tea, and put the caramel in her mouth. I frantically called an ambulance. Lauren closed her eyes reassuringly in my arms. I couldn't forgive them for doing such a terrible thing. The ambulance arrived, and I accompanied Lauren to the hospital. I tried to contact my son and his wife on my cell phone, but I couldn't get through. Lauren's life was saved, but her nutritional condition was quite poor, and she had to be hospitalized. My worries intensified when the hospital reported the incident to the police. I was interviewed. "Did you put your granddaughter through this?" the detective asked, his voice sharp. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "I was separated, and I just happened to find out. I tried my best to defend myself." After 2 hours, I was finally released. I contacted my eldest daughter, Lily, and the couple rushed from the next state by car. I asked them to take care of Lauren, who was in stable condition, and took a taxi back to my son's house. When I looked around, I found my son's travel schedule on his desk. He was supposed to be home the next night. I asked the neighbors about the situation and learned a surprising fact. I went back to the hospital and discussed with my daughter and her husband what to do next. We decided to make a drastic decision. The next evening, when my son and his wife were supposed to be returning home, I left the hospital where Lauren was admitted and visited their house. As soon as Evelyn saw me, she wrinkled her eyebrows and crossed her arms. "What on earth did you come here for?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. I was about to break my heart at her continued rudeness, but I couldn't flinch. "I'm here to see Lauren. Show me your face." Evelyn lied, saying that she had left Lauren with a friend. "Come on, it's funny," she said dismissively. "Lauren should have been chained here," I said, my voice rising. "You didn't even look for her when she was gone, did you?" I showed her a picture of my granddaughter taken when I found her. My son and his wife looked at each other, their faces filled with guilt. "Why did you treat your cute daughter like this?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. Lauren hadn't eaten anything and was shivering from the cold. However, my son and his wife tried to blame Lauren. "It's Lauren's fault," Bradley said, his voice lacking conviction. "She's rebellious even though we're raising her with love. If we don't keep the chains on, she's going to break everything in the house." They tried to make Lauren the bad guy by lying, and they didn't show any remorse at all. "You two would go out and play late into the night and leave Lauren alone," I said, my voice filled with anger. "You could say that, wouldn't you?" "Sometimes I'm late for work," Evelyn said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't be delusional and say weird things. I know everything. You've got a reputation in the neighborhood." I had been going around asking their neighbors about the situation to find out the actual circumstances. When Lauren was a child, I visited her frequently, so there were many familiar faces. They were all worried about my granddaughter and told me about her. "Lauren once stayed alone in a nearby park until late at night," one neighbor told me. "The house was locked even though it was a frigid winter. She was wearing tattered and light clothes. I took care of her in my house every night. Your son and his wife came home late and were seen going to gambling and bars to play. She had a reputation around here for being poor. We didn't do something about it because if I give her the key, Lauren will run amok in the house," Evelyn said, her voice filled with bitterness. "No, it's to keep Lauren from eating food on her own when she's hungry, right? Poor thing. Her body isn't nourished enough and she's very skinny." "I heard about it from Lauren herself at the hospital," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "One day when she was waiting for her parents who came home late, she was so hungry that she ate a cake that was in the refrigerator. However, it seems to have belonged to Evelyn and she is furious. After that, it seems that Lauren did not have the key and was left outside." Evelyn listened to me, her eyes narrowed in anger. "I don't think Lauren is cute because she looks like you," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "Lauren is in the hospital with a diagnosis of malnutrition, and you use my money for your play, not for Lauren," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Children's money belongs to their parents. It doesn't matter what I use it for. Don't be stingy. It's a crime to leave a child unraised properly, and you've already reported it to the police," I said, my voice filled with righteous anger. When they heard the word police, my son and his wife changed their complexions for a moment, but they immediately replied, "It's not a crime if you say that Lauren is a picky eater. The police won't find out that we don't feed her even if she's skinny. Besides, the neighbor's story is just a rumor and not proof." The two of them smiled triumphantly. "Don't you know that what you're saying right now is recorded?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "And a picture of you in chains and a medical certificate from the hospital are enough. Some people have testified more clearly." "Who's that?" Evelyn asked, her voice laced with fear. "It was your granddaughter, Lauren herself," I said, my voice filled with satisfaction. "At one point, I was suspicious and almost arrested, but thanks to Lauren, the misunderstanding was cleared." My granddaughter said, "It wasn't my grandma who made me feel bad. It was my mom and dad." Thanks to her testimony, the truth came out. My son and his wife were caught red-handed, their escape plan failing. My son and Evelyn became impatient. "Well, wait, tell the police that it's you who chained Lauren. That will save us," Bradley pleaded. "You're Bradley's parent, aren't you? Parents protect their children. Help me." I was stunned by their pale faces and their selfish words. I don't want you to tell me that I mistreated my child because I'm going to stop being a Bradley parent for today, I said, my voice firm and resolute. What, Mother? You won't help me. Is it okay if you don't see Lauren because of this? I won't give her away, Bradley said, his voice filled with desperation. I'm going to cut ties with Bradley and ask him to move out of the house where he was living, I said, my voice cold and emotionless. The house where my son and his wife live is my parents' house, and I rented it to them. No, I don't want to be kicked out because I don't have any money, Evelyn said, her voice filled with fear. Please help me. My son and his wife sat down and begged for forgiveness, but I coldly told them off. It's not me who you have to apologize to, but Lauren, I said. She said she didn't want to see you. I couldn't believe a child would give up on their parents. I thought about my granddaughter's feelings and almost burst into tears. I didn't want to cry in front of these guys. The police arrived. I had informed them in advance of the time when my son and his wife would be coming home. I looked coldly at my son and his wife as they were taken away, crying. After that, as a result of the police interrogation, my son and his wife were found guilty of high maliciousness. Rumors spread in the neighborhood and were widely reported. My son, whose name and face were revealed to the world, was fired from his job and his life completely collapsed. He is now living on the street. Evelyn disappeared, but I heard that she was making money by working in a nightclub. Lauren was to be adopted and raised by me. I was to claim a lump sum of $1 million for Lauren's alimony and child support from my son and his wife. I sold my house and the house I had rented to my son. I bought an apartment near my eldest daughter and her husband and moved in with my granddaughter. My eldest daughter and her husband, who do not have children, are happy to take care of Lauren. I hope that these peaceful and happy days will last forever. Let's conclude the story shortly. The justice system had served its purpose, holding my son and his wife accountable for their cruel actions. The community, shocked and outraged, turned its back on them. Their lives were in ruins, a stark contrast to the peaceful and happy life Lauren and I were building together. Lily and her husband, welcoming Lauren into their family, showered her with love and care. The laughter and warmth that filled our home were a testament to the strength of family and the resilience of the human spirit. I had learned a harsh lesson about the dark side of family, but I also learned the true meaning of love, compassion, and forgiveness. Lauren, my granddaughter, was my beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, love can triumph. As the sun set each day, casting a golden glow on our cozy apartment, I would watch Lauren play, her laughter echoing through the room. She was a shining example of innocence and joy, a constant reminder that life, despite its challenges, was worth living. And I, with a heart full of gratitude, knew that I had found peace and happiness in the arms of my granddaughter.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.